Thank you all for coming. Thank you for viewing this in real time or on YouTube when we finally put it online. My name's Rob Riley, and I'm taking a moment to introduce the host of the Jim Bregman Invites You To series, which is Jim Bregman. Jim has a long career in judo, starting at an early age, doing lots of training, uh, being the Pan American champion, the national champion, and ultimately going to the Olympic Games in Tokyo in 1964 and winning the USA's first Olympic judo medal, which was a bronze medal. The following year, he was at the World Championships and won a bronze medal. In succeeding years, he has been one of the founders of the U.S. Judo Association, has set it on its path, and after that has been a source of knowledge and wisdom to everyone, especially me. And I think next year I understand he's going to be on the Olympic team again, and is going to be really successful. So with that said, let me introduce 10th degree black belt in judo, Olympic medalist Jim Bregman.
Well, I guess I better start training right now, right? So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Travis Stevens. He is a judoka and a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. He has an amazing athletic career. He competed in the Olympics in 2008, 2012, and the Rio Olympics in the summer of 2016, where he was the third American to win a silver medal, which is an amazing accomplishment. But in addition to that, he in Rio in 2007 and 2015 competed and won gold medals at the Pan Am Games. The Pan American Championships were held in Buenos Aires in 2009, Miami 2008, 2011 in Guadalajara, and in Havana in 2016. And in all of those events, Travis medaled silvers and gold. Uh, Also in El Salvador, San Jose, Guayaquil. I'd love to go back to Guayaquil, and Edmonton. He primarily teaches at the Fuji Gym in Wakefield, Massachusetts, where he opened it in January of 2013, on the 12th of January. He trains at Renzo Gracie Academy in New York City with several elite athletes. And Travis also teaches at Renzo Gracie Fort Lee in New Jersey. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Travis to you. And the subjects that we will be covering are the state of American Judo today. And Travis will provide, hopefully, some insights into what's happening generally in the American Judo community. Travis, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, Jim. Thank you for the introduction.
You're very welcome.
And for having me here. I guess when we're talking about the state of American Judo, I feel like it's where it's always been. It's not so much that we're losing or that we're getting worse. I think we're right in line with where we've always been based on past results. And I think the hard part people are really struggling with is we don't have a superstar. And I think the American judo population in the United States has always masked its inability to produce champions based on the performance of its outliers. And I also feel that looking at all of the statistical results, we're actually probably better today than we were back in the 2000s, with the exception of some outliers like Jimmy, who was already winning in the 90s, that ended up competing into the 2000s. But when you take a look at the 2008 Olympic team, we were terrible. We were probably one of the worst teams that set foot on the Beijing Olympic mats, as far as where we were in the 80s and 90s, right? Just as a competitive bunch, because in the 90s, you had Brian Olsen, who was in his prime. You had Jason Morris, you had Jimmy Pedro. You had like people that could compete on the world stage that were respected as judoka. Right now, I remember being on the 2008 team, and I remember just one of my goals being was I want to be an athlete that's respected. I don't want people to look at the draw and go, "Oh, I have another American. This is great." And it's hard to quantify that into everyday people, because not everyday people understand the gap in skill, those rungs up the ladder that you have to climb in order to reach, the peak of sports. When you talk about national champions, when you talk about medals and performance, we're so bad that we hang our hat on individual wins that don't equate to actual medal counts. And we're happy with almost. And in 2008, the team was really hiding behind Ronda Rousey's performances because she was the only true successful athlete. I was on that team. I'll tell you flat out, I was a garbage judo player at the time. But because USA Judo had no standards, I was able to compete and trained, and I was driven enough and disciplined enough as an athlete to persevere through the lack of, I don't want to say coaching, but guidance, more so than coaching, because that's really what we're missing in American judo is the guidance. We don't have a path of success for anybody. And it's a shame because people have forgotten. And I listened to Steve Cohen's on YouTube after he had it, and he made an excellent point, and I don't think anybody touched upon it enough, where people don't know how to watch judo, or people are blinded by, specific results or performances, like taking 7th at a Grand Slam or 5th at a Grand Slam. But did anybody actually take a look at the draw and see who they beat? Like what actual players of note, seeded athletes with a history of performance and winning on the world stage, did they beat? And 99% of the time, it's nobody. They got there because the division was a little bit weaker. The seeded player lost to somebody else. They got a good call in a match. They don't actually dive into the events to really see how the performance is. And it's a shame because you can't really argue with a 5th, but when you post the actual results, people get upset because they feel like you're naysaying people's performance and what they've done. And it's more about trying to get them to rise to a higher level instead of accepting where it was. When 2015 World Championships happened, I remember we were there with Jimmy, Big Jim, Caleb, Marty, and myself. And when we traveled the world, us as a group, somebody always medaled. We competed collectively as a unit, right? Where if, Marty was having a bad day, Travis won a medal. if Marty and Travis had a bad day, Kayla won a medal. On the off chance that Kayla got thrown, Marty won a medal or Travis won a medal. Like, we were feeding off each other and raising the level of everybody around us. And it got to this point where when we were in 2015, we all lost. It was the worst world championships in history for us as a unit, right? Because Kayla lost in the second round. I got choked for the first time in my career in the second round. Marty lost in, I think, the second or third round. None of us made the repechage. And we were left with 0 medals, almost no wins. And we were all like completely ashamed of ourselves. But through that was a drive of getting around each other saying, hey, how do we fix this? What do we do? And then you got, from that loss at the World Championships a year later, you got the best performance in U.S. history. So it's that unit that we're truly missing in America. And it's hard because, you know, if you've ever seen Miracle on Ice, the movie, it's probably a great example of what USA Judo needs, because the coach said, I'm picking my team. And then there's a scene where the guy's like, hey, you've scratched some of the best players this country has on day one. And he's like, yes, because they don't make sense for what we're trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish to beat the Russians, right? He showed up with a plan and he put a team together to go win internationally. And when you look at some of the most successful judo countries in the world, whether it be Japan or France, doesn't matter. They are hand selected because they work as a unit, right? If I take my gold medalist at 81 kilos and my gold medalist at 90 kilos and my gold medalist at 73, and all they do is fight and bicker, and then they go into the tournament, they're just going to lose because they're not having a fun time. They're not enjoying the atmosphere. They don't want to be at the event. And it turns into more of an ego stroke and a battle off the mat where nobody's cutting weight properly. Nobody's enjoying team dinners. Nobody's working together. Nobody's helping each other. And when you travel overseas, which most people have never been there, those guys are teammates. Like, they do everything together. The Japanese team, they eat together, they run together, they wake up at 6 a.m. and they have team meetings together. They stand out in the middle of winter in the rain with their coats just so that the coach can tell them what the plan is for the day. Jim, I know you've seen it. It hasn't changed. They've been doing it for 30, 40 years.
Exactly.
It's one thing after another because they compete as a unit.
Right. There's a cohesion.
Yeah. The Georgians, they sleep on each other on the mats.
Yeah.
Right? Because they get along. They're friends and they're there for each other. When one has a bad day, the other one picks them up. When one has a bad day, he's there to support his friend because, you know what? They're competing for the country. It's not, I'm better than you. It's not, I want you to lose. It's like, I want the United States to succeed because I feel like I've succeeded. Even though I failed on the individual side, like, I've done my part to help.
Right.
Right? Like, there's a sense of pride that I get to take because I helped Kayla warm up and got her into a good mental state for her 2016 performance.
Right. And could you review the outstanding performances in 2016 for the people that'll be watching this?
I mean, Kayla and I both won gold medals at the World Masters. Unprecedented. It's never happened before. And we both made the Olympic finals in Rio.
There you go.
And I believe we had our best Pan Am result as far as medal count is concerned too. But I'm not 100% sure on that because we might have walked away with 3 gold medals at one of them.
Right.
But
it's an outstanding performance.
It was definitely
an
outstanding year, especially in an Olympic year.
Right.
Right. Where the team as far as like that small group of people. And there was a 100% line drawn in the sand from like, call it an A team and a B team.
Mhm.
There was that definite line, but the line was there because the A team needed to perform. They were treated differently because there needed to be that segmentation, because when you add all the baggage into the event and into everything where time is taken away, it affects the performance on a big scale. You know, anybody that's ever ran a business, like if something happens in the final hours, like the whole thing could collapse. And you could see that happen a lot at the World Championships.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have a team of 14, 28 people, and some of them have never interacted with coaches or seen international players, they're trying to develop gripping strategies on the world stage for players they've never fought to try to win. And it's like, you need that ingrained into your body. You missed the boat. That was 6 months ago.
Right.
Right. But the coaches and everything is chaotic. Like when you're trying to cut weight and you're trying to warm up, there's no feel for judo because there's a skill gap. It just turns into a nightmare, because there's a proper way to train, and then there's a proper way to fight, and there's a proper way to train at training camps. But when you're trying to work out and develop, it's done a little differently. And right now, the only thing we have in America is we practice judo with like the idea of uchikomis and nagikomi, and then we fight. That middle ground, that development part, is completely missing in the United States. They're like, if anybody has ever wrestled, you would understand what like chain wrestling is and flow wrestling is. And if you don't, go on to Flow Wrestling on social media or whatever, and just look at the account and watch the wrestlers like just play with each other. Right? Our egos tend to get involved. In the second like you start getting knocked down, people start fighting a little bit harder, and then before you know it, somebody breaks somebody's grip, and then the finger hurts. And you see that happen overseas when people are prepping for events, and that level of anxiety hurts performance. So, you know, I don't necessarily think USA Judo is performing worse than it ever has. I think a lot of countries have realized with the IJF tour happening that they've needed to professionalize their programs. And now you see countries like Colombia and Dominican Republic and a few others, they're starting to focus in on, you know, hey, I don't need an entire team of 30 people to go to these events, but I can focus in on some of my star athletes, and those star athletes are winning. And then some of our players are losing to those star athletes. And now the Americans are like, hey, we've never lost to these people before. But it's not because our players are any worse than they ever have been. When you look at the 2008 team, Taraji Williams Murray, I don't think he has a world championship medal, doesn't have an Olympic medal. I don't know if he's ever medaled in Paris.
Right.
I don't know if he's ever medaled in Russia. Right. But people look at it like he's a superstar. And you could go down the list: Taylor Takata, Ryan Reeser, Adler Volmar, Daniel McCormick, Sayaka Matsumoto. She was a superstar when she was a junior, world silver medal, hit the senior stage and kept fighting like a junior. And it's because nobody takes the time to nurture the athlete. Right? Winning doesn't just happen by happenstance. It can, for some people, get lucky. And some people really push through and grind and stay focused and break through. I feel like I was one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
I reached a level of success just because of my work ethic. And then when Jimmy took it upon himself, when he made the under 23 team, to nurture that group of players, that's when I really started seeing success. It wasn't until after that. I wasn't winning medals until 2010, you know, consistently, even at the bigger events. So when I made the 2008 team, I was pretty much a laughingstock in the world of judo when people looked at the draw. I was tough, but I never won. And making that change takes a ton of work, not just physically, but mentally. And right now, our level of standard of success in the United States is so low that it's hard for our athletes to rise to that occasion because they're unchallenged. They're unmotivated because they get to go anyways. I would rather send nobody. Mm-hmm. When you look at the actual Olympic qualification point system and the way the budget works in America, you should never send anybody anywhere. Why would you? If all of our athletes never went on the IJF tour and just stayed in the Pan Am Union, they would all be qualified for the Olympics. Because they can do it based with World Cup points and the Pan Ams. I don't need to go to Europe. I don't need to go to Asia. You guys don't want to win medals anyways because you're undedicated. We could save a lot of money, time, and energy. It would be a terrible plan for development. But if anybody out there that's like struggling with like cash and just wants to go to the Olympics, just fight some Pan Am Cups. You'll fight 3 or 4 matches. They're terrible athletes and you'll win gold medals and you'll be able to qualify. And right now in America, it's so hands off that the athletes get to pick and choose. And it's really sad to see that nobody is forcing the excellence out of people, right? Because you can't really, not everybody, most of us can't just do it ourselves. Most of us need to be held accountable to somebody somewhere.
Travis, what recommendations, I understand that you did make some recommendations to improve the situation. What recommendations did you put forward and how were they received?
So in 2016, I made a couple of proposals to the people in charge. I remember when I was when I was still in Rio, it must have been like a week or so after I had won my medal. We were trying to figure out, what does Travis Stevens do? Do I go 90 kilos because making 81 was getting extremely difficult? And it was actually detrimental to my body. And the nutritionist for the USOC actually recommended I don't fight it anymore, even before Rio ever happened. And I was like, I'm not making a weight change. I go, I'm going to man up. I'm going to cut the weight. And it just is what it is. And I wrote a letter to Kevin Asano, an email. And I asked him if he would pay me a salaried commission of $50,000 a year. And I would do 10 Yudanchikai seminars for any Yudanchikai he wanted that was a part of the JF. Because I know that the JF gives $5,000 to each Yudanchikai for athlete development. And I told him if he could pay me, it would give me a job, it would give me focus, and I could actually promote judo for the JF. And all the income that came in from the seminars could go back to the Yudanchikai that I got hosted to. And it would basically be a way to get the Olympic medalist out to all the athletes the year after the games to inspire them and show them that they're not going to be left behind. And he took it into consideration and then never wrote me back after a second email. That was one. And I thought it was a simple one that made sense, because if my fee is, $5,000 to show up for an entire weekend, and now you get to keep all the money that comes in, and people know that the money that they're paying is going back into the athlete fund and not into the athlete's pocket, it gets more people to show up because they know it's going back into the system.
Right.
So it was a way for them to, hopefully, if they did a good job marketing, to raise more funds than what they were putting into the system by using an Olympic medalist to attract more people. That was one way I was doing it. Obviously, that was for self preservation for me to be able to stay in the sport and have a job, because I was jobless after Rio.
Sure.
I wasn't doing anything. And I had a bunch of conversations with Keith Bryant and Eddie Liddy at USA Judo. And I made a petition to be the under 23 head coach at the time. And I had written together two kind of business models. One where I was still an athlete, and one where I was retired and a full-time coach. As an athlete, I thought it would be intelligent for USA Judo to, I don't want to say misuse the funds, but use the funds from the USOC to fund my salary of $50,000. Because if I'm an athlete, they can tap into that fund because I'm an Olympic medalist. It means I get carried over regardless of performance. And we could have put the $40,000 budget that went to the under 23 athletes and used it to travel alongside the senior team, where I could sit in the stands and I could coach them and watch them and have them take notes, check their notes, have them study the players, learn how to watch judo. We could do practices on the mats in between the finals when the teams are all out there are competing. They can get used to being on the scene so they're not starstruck every time they step onto the mat, where they learn that they're a part of it instead of feeling like, oh, there's Teddy Reiner, oh, there's Ono. It's just a guy. Just a guy. Hey, let's go say hello. Let's get this out of the way so we can move past it. And you can start acting like you belong instead of acting like you're from the outside looking in. And with that plan, it would allow me to train, travel, and compete, but also nurture a younger group where I could go to young events, junior events, under 23 events in Europe to do that. But I could also travel on the senior circuit and bring the team along and still compete, so that if 2020 happened and my 90 kilo ranking and my size and my strength went up, I could actually make that play and possibly do 90 kilos at a fourth Olympic Games. That was one idea. And alongside that, if I was going to do a coaching side full time, my idea was to take the under 23 team and turn it into a profit center for the kids. Because I feel like with where sports are going, we can't offer it into colleges, because the way judo is getting professionalized worldwide, kids can't necessarily stay in school and compete on the world stage. They would have to stay home and develop and keep their feet wet competing. And then once they've graduated, then they can make a play at making a full run, or doing 2 years. And then the 2 years of the Olympics, going full-time athlete, coming back and then finishing their college, right? Where they're only doing a class or so because it's demanding. I mean, right now the IJF circuit is 15, 16-year-olds are traveling the world. I don't even know how they keep up with their schoolwork.
Right.
So my plan was, if I was going to be a full-time coach, it would again be a $50,000 a year salary. But what I would do is I would take every kid within their region, and I would have that kid and I would market that kid as a superstar within his region. Adonis would be a great example of that, right? You could take Adonis in Florida, in Miami, and just run USA Judo regional clinics. And you cut Adonis a check, 30%, and say, Adonis, that's your fee for running it. You're now an actual employee, signed contract that says you're going to do 4 clinics a year. You're going to fight at these 3 events. You're going to attend these 2 national tournaments, and we're going to do these 2 training camps overseas. And for that, I'm going to give you 4 clinics. And the more you promote it, the more you're on social media, the more you're doing it, the more money you're going to make. And it was a way to incentivize people to get on social media, to start telling people, get their images out there, go to work, promote the sport of judo to the community, and actually get people paid. And the money that came in above the 30, 40% that you would pay the athlete, doesn't pay Travis Stevens or the coach. It would actually go back into the system to help fund the event further into that bracket. But Keith said I wasn't qualified for the job, so they said no. And then I asked them who was qualified, and I wanted to know what the job description was, and I wanted to know the business plan that whoever was going to take the job was going to come to the table. Because that was my thing, was I came with not only a knowledge of judo on how to help kids get better at judo, but I also came with a plan that got them paid, it got them overseas, and it kept them in the sport because I'm putting money in their bank account.
Right.
Right. So it was about getting that influx of cash. And also, I'm a firm believer that if you want to be a good athlete, you have to be able to teach judo. You have to be able to remember what it is you're doing and how you do it if you want to be able to replicate it. It can't all be based on feel. None of our athletes do enough judo like the Japanese or the Koreans to just base it on feel and not know.
Right.
There's got to be a level of understanding.
So we're actually competing against countries that have professional athletes, professional teams with full-time coaches that are affiliated with youth athletes all the way up through a system that brings them up to an international level. And throughout their careers, they see from a relatively young age what international players are doing, how they do it. They watch the tournament, they analyze each player, and by the time they are at a very high level, they understand the game and they don't feel awestruck by walking into a international venue, which if you do that for your first time, it can be overpowering.
Yeah, there, you know, it's a fine line between, like, you know what, you just got lucky. You're not good, you got lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody can get lucky. Everybody's got some kind of like weird trick up their sleeve. I'm one of them. I got a couple of tricks up my sleeve for people that don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
But once they know, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
It only works once, maybe twice. You're never going to get a third win out of it because people are intelligent and they don't like losing. They're going to remember.
And they analyze.
They analyze.
And they remember.
Yep.
And they write it down and they discuss it with a group of coaches and players.
I remember, you know, people always ask me, you know, when it comes to like being an athlete and training and competing and like the losses and the wins, and people don't talk about the losses. And it's hard to wrap people's heads around that. But the people that are successful also don't talk about the wins. Right? We only remember the losses. We don't think about the wins that we had because you know what? They don't stick out to us because we've made that leap in our heads mentally where, what do you mean you thought I was going to lose? Like, that's normal. It's not this thing that you just blast out to the world like, hey, everybody, guess what? I beat so-and-so. Hey, guys, look at me. I beat a guy that's this good who did that. No. Why would you do that? Because when I look at things like that, I go, yeah, but where did you beat him? When was his medal actually won from when you fought him? And was he really on vacation? You know, you look at the Russian team sometimes, they fly all the way down to like Venezuela to fight a World Cup because they've been hanging on the beach for 2 weeks on vacation. And then they lose to a guy who thinks it's the Olympic Games.
Right.
You know what the Russian does? He takes his loss, he goes back home, and then he goes and wins the Worlds.
Yeah.
Because that's what his focus is. He doesn't get hung up on these small little details. And, you know, Jimmy will tell you too, like, there's times where he's shown up to Paris, he's shown up to World Cups, and he lost first round. I fought Poland one year, and I got thrown in 3 seconds for Ippon by a Korean. I posted my left hand. He did sue me off the grip. Boom. That Korean never made it out of Korea again because that was his trick. Once people saw him throw me with it, the next guy was like, oh, he's not doing that to me.
Right.
And then he lost. He flashed his trick to the world. I was just the sucker that got caught with it. But he went home, and I think that's a hard part. And Steve, in the cast that he did with you, touched upon it, where it's like people are trying to like nickel and dime each other for these wins, especially in the States, instead of focusing on like the actual foundational roots that you need, and then have a trick on the side. Because at some point you're going to need to know how to fight that match for 10 minutes.
Travis, could you go over the foundational roots that you believe need to be developed?
I think when you want to have a conversation about judo, there's very few people in this entire country that you could have that conversation with. And I think the hard part for people is accepting that. And the reason for that is people always like to what if the scenario. And I want to preface what I want to say with this, that you cannot tell me that the French do it, or that the Japanese do it, or that a Korean guy does it, because you do not have those resources available to you to replicate what they do. You don't have a 4-year-old that goes to elementary school that spends 5 years doing nothing but uchikomis, perfecting the actual motor skills and strength within the movement that our kids can do twice a week. You can't do it. Therefore, you need to develop a system within your country with the resources that you have that can replicate success. I think the person who said it the best was the Israeli coach, who's like, we don't do judo like the French. We don't do judo like the Germans. We don't do judo like the Japanese. We do Israeli judo like Israelis because we have different resources. And I think that's a hard part for Americans to identify with, because they want what the Japanese have. Where in reality, we have to look at what's our real goal and what are we trying to do? Are we trying to win Olympic medals, or are we trying to look like the Japanese and have perfect uchimatas? And this is where the difference is. I'm trying to win Olympic medals. And on the flip side of that coin, I am trying to make money by promoting the values of judo to the community. And we use the values of judo to fund the Olympic medals. And they are two opposite sides of the coin that require two different types of people. And what I want is I want the people that are on the values of judo side to teach not just the Kodokan judo, not just Japanese judo, but the foundational skills that the athletic side needs to win Olympic medals so that they understand it. And that means rewriting the book. That means we don't use Japanese terminology because it makes people feel uncomfortable. A 6-year-old, I just ran a Boy Scouts thing in the gym, and they struggled with the word each because they thought we were saying itch. And it's hard to communicate. And I don't think we need to spend enough time teaching people how to speak a foreign language to participate in the sport. There's a way to Americanize it to make it useful. And then as they graduate, into their yellow belts and orange belts, you can start introducing non-American techniques. But to answer your question bluntly, I would say gripping, posture, movement, transitions, and newaza. Those would be my 3. I don't think throwing people is all that important. And I don't think it's that hard. I mean, Big Jim and Jimmy have developed a gripping system that the rest of the world can't figure out. And it's scaring me because now that, you know, YouTube is popular, social media is popular, judo fanatics exist now. I've traveled the world for a lot. Jimmy has traveled the world a lot. You're actually starting to see the international players develop traits of our system because they're starting to see it, because we've released instructionals, we've taught them on the side. I was at Tokai University teaching Haga how to split the legs and the Tokai team, because they want to know how to win. And they're like, how come this American guy keeps beating people with this thing? They're looking to add and develop and learn. And I think as American judo players and judoka, we've lost that passion. I think people from the 80s, from the 90s, from the 2000s, they have forgotten how to learn judo and how to develop judo. I guess from a fundamentally standpoint, like, what teaching tool has anybody seen arise in the sport of judo to improve teaching? I don't know if I've seen any.
So we really do not have a nationwide progressive teaching program at the club level that would impart these skills to students early and get them engaged in how to do these things and enjoy themselves.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with Keith Bryan about it. And I told him, I said, Keith, you need to keep people in the sport of judo. I go, forget athletics, forget everything else. You need to keep people in the sport of judo. You have no way of doing that, because right now the only way to stay in the sport is to get beat up. That's it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that. I go, you have an entire platform of people that have to have your product. It's mandatory. They have to use it. Sell them something where they can make money and you can make money that people are thrilled about. I go, just right off the rip, I go, you could put together a kid's coaching course that inspires a 13-year-old to be a sensei in training that can stand alongside their sensei and help teach a toddler class. You can take a 16-year-old kid, give him a job for the summer to pay him minimum wage that makes you more money because it frees up your schedule and inspires him. We only try to develop athletes. That's why our coaches today aren't that good, because nobody's worked with them. They haven't spent the years. I feel like I'm a quality coach because I've been coaching out of Pedro's Judo Center the last 3-4 years of my career. I've also been running a jiu-jitsu school, and I've been doing camps worldwide. I've been teaching for a long time. And I have the eyesight to see judo. I did a podcast with Shintaro the other day, and a guy had a thumbnail on a picture, and he was like, oh, he's got great technique. And I was like, look at his thumbnail. His foot's pointed in the wrong direction, is Uchimata. Like, I just see it. I'm trained to see it. And we don't educate people on that. We just, hey, show up to the coaches meeting. Here's your badge. You run a club, right? Oh, you must know what you're doing. But there's no like path from a 12, 13-year-old kid to a 22-year-old kid that has all those years of actual coaching experience.
And on the mat, teaching and training.
Teaching and learning. Because you know what? We all suck at first.
Of course.
That's just the nature of the beast.
Right.
But the sooner we start, the sooner we can excel.
What methods do you use to recruit people into the dojo initially? How do you get them to sign up to come in to learn in a beginner's class? And then what methods do you use to retain them?
That's the $1 million question.
Yes, it is.
It's a hard conversation to have because you don't want to do anything outside of your comfort zone. Because if you ever come across to the client or to the consumer or to the new prospect, they're going to get that sense that maybe this isn't the right thing. And I think that's why judo is struggling to grow in America, because our own personal self-worth is so low that we've forgotten the value that we could bring to people, because we're so focused on the actual technique side of it. And you've forgotten that that's not why they're there. Nobody walks into a judo club and goes, I want to learn how to do Ippon Sanagi. Nobody did that ever. But as judo coaches, we feel like it's our job to teach you how to throw people. Like, you came in for a great workout to learn a good skill, meet some people, and break a sweat. But we don't give that to people. And once you start understanding your community and what it needs and the clientele that you can attract, because everybody is a little bit different, you've just got to cater to that clientele, right? Every school is a little bit different just because coaches are plugged into the community a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And people forget that you're there to change that person's life. If you can change that person's life, his external network will come to your club, hands down. The problem is you're so focused on telling them that they're wrong and trying to teach them how to do Uchimata, which is unbelievably complicated for somebody that doesn't have the motor skills or has ever seen it. Right? If you actually broke down judo in your head of like the number of things that it takes to pull off, right? You need a good partner. You need to know where to put your left hand, where to put your right hand. Does your head tilt this way? Does it spin? Wait, does it spin with my hips or without my hips? Is it my right foot or my left foot first? I got to spin. Wait, I got to bend my knees, not my back. Then I got to pick a guy up that I haven't picked up anything since I was in high school, right? Or I'm 6 years old and I don't even have the strength to do it. And you're asking a kid to come in and pick somebody up, right? There's a huge level of difficulty from guy walked into your club to guy throwing somebody cleanly. And it's that middle ground where you've got to focus on getting him there, but also helping him with his challenges in life, whether that's confidence, whether that's goal setting, whether it's getting good grades in school. Praise a kid for it. Mm-hmm. Make that his goal, right? Because if you have a 6-year-old kid that's getting C's, sit down, have a 10-minute meeting with the kid and his parent and say, hey, we're going to set some goals. At judo practice, I want you to be able to do 10 push-ups in 2 weeks. And then you have a math test coming up, right? Okay, I want you to get a B. And when you do that, I'm going to give you this patch. It's an academic patch. You know what? It's going to tell everybody how great you are, and that when you set your mind to something, you can do it. Mm-hmm. And that kid will do it. And then when he does it, you stand him up in front of the class and you praise him to your entire dojo. You take a picture, you post that to social media, and you say, I can get your kid. Every parent that sees that picture is going to go, I want my kid to get better grades. I want my kid to be held accountable. I want my kid to be disciplined. And judo does that. And we forget that's what brings people to your dojo. The actual judo aspect is completely secondary. That comes later. That's out of here. If you're running an adult program or a teenage program or you have young girls, I want you as a judo coach, right? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to stand on a table that is 5 feet in the air. Get a chair. I want you to stand on it. And then I just want you to fall down. Just fall. Just tilt your back and just fall backwards. Don't even slap the mat, just hit it. Because that feeling right there is what all of your white belts feel when you pick them up in the air. They're up in the air. They're 3-4 feet up there. And the floor is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. And all you're doing is scaring away your clients because you haven't listened to why they've come into your dojo. And a simple intro lesson, a simple conversation. Hey, why are you here and how can I help you? I had a guy walk into my jiu-jitsu class last night off the street. He walked in and he goes, we said, hey, so what brought you in? He goes, oh, I saw the Conor or the Khabib fight and he did a triangle. And I go, I thought it was really cool, so I thought I'd come to the gym. No problem. Let me show you how to do a triangle. I gave him right what he wanted. Boom, $150 a month sold. Just like that. I asked him what he wanted. I gave it to him. That's how you grow your school. That's how you retain your students. There are other things that you can do, like if you have a kids program already, run a buddy week. Say, hey, you guys all got friends. You want to show them how cool you are? You want to teach them how to do judo? Bring a friend for a week to judo. Free of charge. No problem. Mm-hmm. I went from 20 kids to 40 kids. I could probably get 5 of them to sign up because they're hooked. But during that buddy week, you've got to change those kids' lives. You've got to show the parents the value that you have as a human being on changing their life. And that's what you need to sell.
So most of our clubs really don't have a good marketing strategy.
I wouldn't call it a marketing strategy as much as it's most of our clubs are run by diehard judo players. They're just lifers. They've been doing it their whole life. Mm-hmm. They're not doing it to make money. They're not doing it to change people's lives. They're just doing judo because, you know what? I like doing judo. Mm-hmm. I'd venture to say a lot of people are running dojos because they were members at one point, and then whoever was running it at that time just decided to retire, or God forbid, just died, right? They just got older and then they just passed away, and then it got left to somebody. So they're just, it's like, I didn't just decide to run a dojo. I was a member and I just decided to, pick up where that guy left off. And I know nothing about CRM management, customer relations, marketing, promotions, events. And it's a huge flaw in our system because we don't have anybody like helping people. When I was talking to Keith Bryan, I said, Keith, why don't you just take part of that fund, the American fund that you have? And I go, hey, I'm an Olympic medalist. Why don't you just give me 30 grand on a loan and tell me to open up a judo school? Say, hey, it's not, you don't have to, but if you want to, why don't you just open up a USA Judo school in any town you want? Let me help you get started, right? Because I understand you're retired, but you're somebody I want to keep in the sport. You're an Olympic medalist. You're an Olympian. How about we fund your school for you? We know Mac companies. We know geek companies. We can get you started down and cheap. And I just want you to become a professional judo school and make money. And you know what? I'll even be a partner in it by helping you with the cost up front. And then I'll just take my 20% until my money's back. And then you can buy me out of the rest of the business. And it's no cost to you. Just teach judo and we'll help you out. I'm here for your support. But it doesn't exist. We'll take 500 grand a year and get no return on it because we want to spend money to go to events, but we won't spend 30 grand to actually make an investment into somebody that can actually increase membership, right, over the years. Because if Keith had given me 30 grand and he's taken a little bit of my money until he gets it back, well, how many people am I getting into memberships over the next 5 years? that are buying USA Judo memberships.
So we really, on a national level, USA Judo spends most of its resources on a finite number of people traveling to these international events.
But that's money given from the USOC.
To USA Judo.
Correct. To specifically fund those types of events.
Right. But in reality, at the base level, at the club level, there's no national development program like you just articulated. Where if we could take our successful coaches and international athletes upon retirement, give them some startup money and support them with training programs, start a dojo, bring people into the sport, and expand the base. We have no base.
It's why, Jimmy and I took it upon ourselves to buy the URL usajudo.com.
Mm-hmm.
Because after looking at what USA Judo released for that development module, because we gave Keith Bryant all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I gave Keith Bryant Project 2024's training camp plan before we ever launched it.
Mm-hmm.
He just wouldn't implement it. But you know what? We raised $250,000. We made over $100,000 in registration fees for camps. We took 4 trips with kids, 2 trips to Europe. We funded a lot of the kids to go. We funded the coaches to go. All the people who ran the training camps got paid, and we were still a profitable business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a successful model. But because it came from us, he just didn't want to do it. Or he saw it as it was too much work. But you know what? At the end of the day, we still got all that money raised. We still ran all those camps. We still scheduled everything. We still called Naka in California. We still called Hudson in New Jersey. We still called Chicago. We still ran our camps and clinics. I still ran my jiu-jitsu school. I was still the head of marketing for Fuji Sports. Mm-hmm. Jimmy still owned Fuji Sports and Fuji Mats, and we were still doing our other businesses.
Mm-hmm.
That was a non-employee volunteer basis to run a nonprofit that could see everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a tip of the iceberg. But if you had somebody in there full time whose job it was to actually focus on running systematic camps and clinics nationwide, you could turn that into a profitable business. They're just so afraid of giving the reins to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's why Keith didn't hire me. Was I wanted a contract. I wanted to know how I was going to be judged for job performance. I wanted to know what my limitations were. And I wanted every athlete under my control under a contract for the same. Because if that athlete doesn't perform, I'm going to fire him and he's not going anywhere. If he wants my funds, he's going to do his job.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't do his job, he can fund himself. Go for it. Pay your own way. Don't work with us. No problem. Because I know inside the system, when he gets all the resources from nutritionist to strength coach to on the mat coaching to the training partners to the funding to bringing people into the US to private training camps and sessions, he's going to excel. But everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid of losing of what they had for the possibility of gaining something more.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'm 100% okay with leaving people behind. Right? When Jimmy and I decided to launch, that usajudo.com platform, we bought the USA Judo URL, 1, for its SEO capability,
mm-hmm.
but 2, because it's the future.
Mm-hmm.
Would I like it if USA Judo bought it from me? Of course I would. No problem. We can work that deal out. But in the meantime, we've got over 500 different techniques that teach you how to do Tayatoshi starting without a partner. I'll show you how to teach a kid the proper footwork with a piece of tape in 4 minutes. No problem. And you know what? It'll be fun and it'll be engaging. On the flip side of that, we have an entire dojo consulting business on there that actually has the retention tools that actually has the CRM management system with the email templates, with the phone scripts. It'll teach you how to pick up the phone and call. I'll teach you how to call a high school so that you can be a gym teacher for a day and teach those kids some judo lessons. Not the judo like they're going to throw each other, but the actual physicality that judo players have.
And this material is available at your URL.
Not at the moment. I haven't released it yet. It's coming soon though. Right now you can go sign up, and we'll just give you guys 6 free kind of judo lessons that come out, but it's going to launch next week.
Okay. So the people that are watching this presentation can, after next week, go to this URL, usajudo.com, and you will provide a standardized teaching program and judo development program.
We're going to provide individual structure techniques.
Okay.
From day 1 of class. Step 1, we're going to go over just the footwork. Here's how you set it up on your mat. You can do it with no partner at home. And we're going to press that all the way up into Olympic caliber combinations and setups and techniques, where we actually show you how to learn and also when to apply. Because when you look at throws like, Uchimata, for example, the way you apply it in randori is not necessarily how you train and develop the technique, right? How you do your chikomis, how you have your partner stand, right? We all have them stand just slightly a little bit different because it gives us a better feel. But then how do you get your partner, and when do you do that particular Uchimata in what given scenario? Right? There are 15 different versions of Uchimata, but they each have their own little unique place, right tool for the right job. And we go through the trouble of here's a video on the application and giving you the explanation of when and where it's used. And here's a video on that same thing on how you can develop it in your club with a training partner. And so we broke up all the techniques into platforms that go from day 1 all the way through Olympic caliber. We gave in another section just different drills and skills that you guys can learn to work on your transitions, work on your newaza, learn how to chain your newaza together so you can go from one technique to another. We have entire series of techniques so that you're never just, well, I tried sankaku, well, I tried this choke, and you're bouncing from one thing to another and not linking things together. We have the entire gripping system put up there. There's throwing drills for athletes to develop speed and coordination. Some are there to develop power. Some of them are there to develop timing. So we just give kind of that insighted system. And then Jimmy and I will also, for everybody who becomes a member, we're going to do bi-weekly live judo classes where people can just sign in. And if they're struggling with anything, we're here to answer. But we'll also have, topics of the day that we want to discuss because we feel like they're not really touched upon in people's dojos. And it's not a resource that is there to replace people's dojos. But I know that that's what people are going to say. Don't do that. It's going to ruin your dojo. You can't learn judo online. But you know what? People learn everything online these days. And right now, if you do judo twice a week, you can learn and retain more information by watching judo outside of the dojo. Right? It'll be muscle memory. The more you think about it, the more you dwell on it, the more you problem solve. Come up with ideas for practice. So we put all that, and while it's incomplete right now, it's better to launch with something in all the different areas than wait until the entire Kodokan of judo is shot. So it's going to give us room to grow where we can add more and more techniques and more consulting portions of the business.
And more content will develop over time.
Correct. I've already got a shoot schedule with Jimmy tomorrow to film more of it.
That's good.
But
Well, go ahead.
We're kind of just taking it upon ourselves to, I guess, fix the issues at hand that everybody is struggling with, because when there's a lot of people with a lot of ideas, and you know what? I guarantee you that you would have great ideas for our platform. but I don't need great ideas. I need something tangible to give people to help them today.
Mhm.
And then we can grow as the platform grows and as the membership grows and it can develop. I think a lot of people just look for perfect, like the American Judo development module. They came out with a really nice PDF and then nothing. COVID or not, that all that content should have been filmed.
Mhm.
I mean, they were taking videos of athletes from their Instagram pages. It's not actual, like, thought out learning judo. And I think that's what people need to focus on, are like the actual values and virtues that people can take from your club out into the real world. Because if you impact that person's life, they'll bring their kids back to you for sure. They'll tell their friends. You'll see a life change in people, and the community will just know. But if all you do is teach them how to throw each other, it's never going to spread. Never going to spread. The last thing you want is your marketing piece to be a 16-year-old with a mat burn on his forehead or his fingers taped together at school, because it's not about being tough.
Well, we're about at our time limit, Travis, but I want to thank you very, very much for a very interesting presentation. And I would encourage people to go to usajudo.com when it becomes available and find out what these programs can offer. I think you've done a great job, and I want to commend you both on your tremendous athletic record and wish you the best of luck in developing American Judo in a progressive and more rational fashion.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the questions here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And they're a little interesting.
Okay.
So to answer Richard's question on migrate from current U.S. model from sending representatives to sending as a team.
Right. That's a very good question.
Yeah, they still represent the United States. The problem that we all face is it turns into a battle of you or I. When in reality, it shouldn't matter who beats who. Like, does it really matter who beats who in a matchup between Nick DiPapolo and Alex Turner? Of course not. What matters is who beats everybody in the rest of the world. And that's a mental change for a lot of people. Realistically, the national team should probably not fight the national championships. The national team should be separate. It should be out of question, because it creates animosity amongst them where they're no longer working with each other to beat who. Like, I want my 281 kilo guys to figure out how to beat the Japanese. I want them collectively working and giving each other advice to improve. I don't want them holding each other back. I want them pushing each other to reach the highest level, not the other way around. And it's that mental change that you're really trying to convey. I don't want a headline to be the 73 kilo guy wins the gold medal, and then all of a sudden the 81 kilo guy feels bad because he's not mentioned in the article. I don't want that. Mm-hmm. I want the unit to work together, to push each other to that higher level of excellence. That's what I would like.
Richard says, thanks for answering my question. That was excellent. And
I would say to your other question, Richard, on are you saying that elite level team culture and relationships are what gets you to the podium? I'm saying happy people win. There are some people that can hate judo. They're miserable. They're forced to do it, and they can win titles. I 100% understand that, and they exist. But at the end of the day, you've got to remember what is the goal of the organism of what judo is in America. And our goal as a business, as an entity, as a unit is to, again, bring people into here, into the organization that get memberships, that love the sport of judo, where their lives are changed. That then funds the actual Olympic program where people systematically get better. And yes, I may have an athlete outside of the system that is great. He can even beat my top players. But if he's a bad seed, I don't pick him. I don't select him. I go with the people I have because I'm going to win more medals. Because if I put that bad seed into that system, right, there's a good chance that he loses. And there's a good chance all my other people lose because they don't want to be here. They're at unease. It's not a fun environment because they don't work together. The French are notorious for that. I know some athletes in France that have beaten Iliadis and they don't go to the Worlds. And you're like, but how is that possible? Because it affects the team. And the goal would be to have enough people that could go win that medal for you, not just the one. And so the relationships that happen overseas, they do affect it. They do affect whether people are there. Hey, if I'm an athlete and it's like, I just stepped off the scale and I can't find my water, or my protein shake is missing, or, I can't find my room key and I need the team manager, but the team manager is fighting with a guy that has never been on a trip before, but he's at the world championships. Like, it affects me because if I go without my water for an extra 15 minutes after a 10-kilo weight cut, that's a problem. Right. So the people, and as people travel and as people work together, you start to understand everybody's quirks, and it's like, oh, that's just him. He's just being who he is and I can let him go. I don't have to deal with it. He's just venting. But when you don't know the person, you kind of feel like you got to cater to him because it's your job. So it's just, if you don't spend enough time together, you don't really know how to work together collectively. Like, who carries whose bags on what days? Who's in charge of the tape on what days? How do we do this? A lot of people don't realize the level of professionalism of judo in the rest of the world. When I was training in Russia with Nick, we were awestruck because we would come off the mat after a 5-minute battle with one of the Russians. He would walk off the mat to a massage table, take the round off and get a massage for 5 minutes, get fresh forearms. I go back out for another round with another guy, come off. Now he wants to go train again. Like, what are we doing? No wonder why. And then coaches are systematically telling athletes like, hey, you're looking a little flat. I just want you to go sit in the sauna. You're looking a little flat. Just go do it. You don't need to train today. But nobody's paying attention or knows the athletes well enough to really push them to that limit where it's like, I know you tell me you're tired. I know you're telling me you hurt, but you know what? When I watch you do judo, you look good. So you're still in pain, you're hurting, but you're still throwing people, you look great. Versus athletes where it's like, they don't quite look as sharp. Hey man, why don't you just go sit down? No, I don't feel tired. No, you can't take me out. No, you look a little tired. Like, go sit down, you're gonna call it a day. Because as athletes, once we quit up here and we tell ourselves, I'm done, like I'm out, you quit on yourself. And we can't let our athletes quit. We have to have people in place that the athletes trust for the right decision, so that our athletes, nothing but good news. They never quit. Our coaches should know how to push them to that limit where they're about to break them and then pull them back in. That way they're getting pushed and driven all the time. But it takes time. It takes time to really know the athletes. That's why Steve Cohen made a good point where he's like, I was working with athletes from 15 all the way up into the 90s. Because you have to build that relationship of trust so that when you say Tayo, that athlete just does it. He doesn't question you. He knows you have his best interest or her best interest at heart. And it only comes with time. You can't just say, oh, here's the coach from California. Here's the athlete from New Jersey. Here's the athlete from Florida. Go step out on the world stage and coach them. Like you Absolutely. Have any idea.
Does not work.
It doesn't work. You're just a cheerleader. I don't need a cheerleader. I need a guy that tactically knows my judo, knows what I'm capable of, and doesn't feed me a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to do anyways, because now I'm fighting the coach and fighting the athlete and fighting the crowd and fighting the ref, and now I'm just pissed off. We see athletes lose like that all the time. it's just such a hard thing to get across to people because everybody wants to be the guy sitting in that chair, and nobody wants to be the guy at the dojo level with 400 students changing people's lives. People would rather be a failing coach, but say I'm a coach and hey, I was the head coach of USA Judo. That means nothing, provides no value. It's just a nice little check box where the guy that has a club of 400 kids that love him, that would do anything for him, that'll be little soldiers in the community bringing you more students, making you money so that you can pay for your kids to go to college and do judo full time. That's what we need people to aspire to want to be. And nobody should want that USA Judo job. It doesn't pay anything. It's a headache. Who wants to deal with a bunch of like 20-year-old athletes crying about not having enough water because they're cutting weight and can't eat? I don't want to deal with that. I was that. I don't want to deal with me. It's not fun. You really want to be pounding on doors at 11 o'clock at night, say, hey, you on weight? Hey, it's 6 a.m. You got to go for a run. Hey, why aren't you at practice? Hey, bus leaves. I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather deal with a 6-year-old coming up to me saying, hey, I got an A on my report card. And then you give him an honor roll badge and say, hey, man, congratulations. I'm really proud of you. And change the kid's life.
That's what judo is all about.
Changing people's lives for the better.
Absolutely.
I don't care about Seanagi. And you know what? A lot of people, going back to Steve's point too, I know we're past our time, but he made a good point about people not being able to see judo. And I think a lot of people misinterpret good coaching for good athletes. Right? Like, yeah, I can take a tough kid, put him at the junior nationals and beat somebody. But that's got nothing to do with my ability of teaching people judo. Right? Like I could take a strong kid, never done judo. I could teach him how to post on the collar, throw a Georgian grip, grab your kid's belt and smash him with Ogoshi. And if he can't do Ogoshi, he's going to do Osoto. And he'll just keep doing it. He'll break your kid down mentally and physically. That's not that. Like, what am I going to do with that when that kid's 20 years old and he fights people from countries that have been doing that forever against qualified people? I can't help that kid anymore because nobody taught him a foundation. And that's where we struggle when we're looking at who can actually coach our team, who can actually put together a program that develops judo in America. Like, what are the foundational traits that we need? And really what this country needs in a nutshell is for one guy to just sit at the helm, pick his team and say, if you don't like it, go do karate and just call it a day. That it is what it is. Because that's really what you need, are just people that believe in the program. A lot of people, you know, complain about Jimmy's system and how it doesn't work and it doesn't do this. It works. Ronda Rousey will tell you it works. Jimmy will tell you it'll work. Kayla will tell you it'll work. I'll tell you it'll work. People who win Olympic medals will tell you it'll work. The people that don't have success are the people that don't believe. They naysay. They want to do it their way. They want to leave the system. They want to do these other things. And it fails. But that's not a problem in the system. That's a problem in the athlete and the way the system work together. And some people are like oil and water. It just doesn't work. And you know what? I'd be happy to fund anybody that wins a world medal. You want a medal at the Worlds? Sure. You can be a part of the team. Until then, don't talk to me. Or you're going to be a part of my system. You're going to fight at my training camps. You're going to teach judo this way. And we're all going to make a lot of money. And we're all going to win a lot of medals. And it starts with that guy at the top of the helm pulling the trigger and just saying, nope, this is what we do. That's how Visser got judo changed in 2008 when he became president of the IJF. He just said, nope, we're going down this road and we're not going to turn back. You don't like it, you can get off my board. Because right now, everybody in the sport of judo, they haven't done anything so far. They're not going to do anything in the future. I don't care who you put in charge. And a lot of it has to do with, you know, who do they go to? Who do they talk to? How do you get things done? I don't know. I've never been involved in any of those inner circle conversations, so I don't really have the answer. But I know if I got rid of everybody and I was in charge, things would get done and people would start getting paid. And our memberships would go up and people would start fighting in tournaments because I'd make it. I'd make them do it.
Well, we appreciate your dedication and your passion. And again, I wish you the best of luck, and check out usajudo.com.